Hello, my name is Danny Nowlan and I'm the Director of ChassisSim Technologies. Welcome to this latest ChassisSim video tutorial. Today what we're going to be discussing is what I consider to be the real key to simulation, race car simulation in particular. And it's one of these things that it's such a key topic that I think it's completely and utterly overlooked. And to introduce the concept of what I'm about to talk to you today, I want to actually show you an image. Okay, what we've got here is the Wright Flyer. This was the first ever man-made powered aircraft that flew in 1903. And as we can see, looking at it, this is a mock-up of the actual Wright Flyer that I actually saw in real life at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum when I was in Washington last December. And what we can see here, we've got something here that's pretty basic. I mean, we've got covered wings, we've got the canards that are covered front and rear, but really what I want to point out to you is take a look at where Orville and Wilbur sat. Take one look at where the motor is. Take a look at where the chains are and where the propellers are. The harsh reality is, if any occupational health and safety officer worth their salt would have just taken one look at that and would have grounded the aircraft straight away. And really, what this really illustrates to me, and it hit me in the nose when I saw it for the first time at the Air and Space Museum when I was in Washington. The key thing to starting anything is to get going. And as we can see here, what we've got here is pretty rudimentary at best. Yet, that was good enough to get Orville and Wilbur Wright in the air for approximately, I think it was like 20 or 50 meters for controlled flight, approximately 110 years ago. So really, this illustrates the whole thing that in order to get going, you've got to make a start. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the real key to race car simulation. The real key to race car simulation is to get going, because I have lost count of the number of times I have had emails from prospective customers, current customers going, oh, you know what, I mean, yeah, this is really good, but no, you know, do we need this bit of information? Do we need this bit of information, etc., etc.? And it really wasn't really until I saw that, until I saw the Wright Flyer front center stage. If you're going to start any endeavor, I don't care whether it's simulation, whether it's dancing, whether it's learning to fly a radio-controlled aircraft, the key thing is to get started, because once you get going with something and you've got a bit of experience underneath your belt, it's going to make things a whole lot easier. Now, what we're going to discuss in this tutorial is I'm going to walk you through the process of getting going with ChassisSim. Now, one of the things that we've just added into ChassisSim in our latest release in ChassisSim version 3.2.4, you'll see in the help directory, we've included a folder called the ChassisSim tutorial. Now, what the ChassisSim tutorial will have is it's going to have a Word document that'll get you going. It'll have an example car file and a setup file. That has been purposely made to help you guys get over this beginner hump. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk you through a quick example of how you initially get going with an initial baseline. So what I've done here is that I've loaded in my Dallara F310 template. And what I've done is, just to save a bit of time, I've loaded in my car file that I actually got from my setup file, and I've obviously put in all the parameters here, like springs, bars, etc. And I've also taken the liberty of creating a curvature file, and I've also taken the liberty of creating a bump profile. Now, what we're going to do here is I've pretty much loaded the direct setup, but I've basically loaded it with the stock tire model that's come with the Dallara F310 template. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log this to data, and just give me a moment while I fill in all these parameters. And now I've just filled in those parameters. Just going to run a simulation with a stock setup. And We'll just let that do. We'll just let that do its thing. We'll just let that do its thing for a bit, and then we're going to have a quick look at the results compared to the actual data. Now, one thing I can tell you right now, just looking at these results. Now, obviously, I know what the actual data looks like. Grip's a bit down everywhere. So what we're going to do, we're just going to let this do its thing. We're going to export it out to some data, and we're going to have a quick look. So we'll catch you that when we do. So we'll rejoin you when we're actually looking at the actual data. Okay, so we've now basically done our initial lap time estimate, and it's about 95.17 seconds. The initial data is about 90. Was about a 90.9. Now, at this point, you'd be looking back and going, "Oh no, this is absolutely terrible," etc., etc. Well, as always, the important thing, let's look at some data and see what the data tells us. So, what we're going to do, here's our actual raw data. Now, I'm going to open up that actual data set. And what we're going to do, here's my actual data. Here's my actual data. And as we can see, we're pretty much, there are a few turns that we're a little bit down on, grip with. And you'd be thinking, oh, we've got a little bit of work to do here. Well, the key thing is, the good news is, as you can see, yeah, we've got a little bit of work to do on the steering, but the grip is down, particularly down by about 4 seconds. When you see something like this, your instant cue is to up the grip factor. So what I do is I'll go into the front tire force file. The front tire force grip factor is a 0.9. I'm going to change that to 1. The rear is set to 1, so I'm going to change that to 1.1. So I'm just going to up the grip factor by 10% everywhere. I'm going to click on OK. Change my data logging options to go grip plus 10%. And I'm also, just as sort of like a housekeeping thing, I'm always I'm really particular, particularly when you're setting up an initial model, you always log it. And the reason you always log it is that it forms a very valuable record about what you've actually done. One of my principles of race car simulation is that you treat simulated data like actual log data. You record it and you make a record of it. It's as simple as that. So we've upped the grip factor by 10%. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start the simulation again. Now, as we can see, now things are probably just a little bit better. Now, typically, when we're looking at simulation results, what I might do is I'm just going to go to my gear analysis tab just to show you how things are probably a little bit better. You can see here that pretty much there are some corners that have matched up. There are some corners that haven't matched up. At this particular point in the game, what you want to be doing, particularly on an initial simulation, if you are like in the order of about 1 to 2 to 3 seconds down, my knee-jerk response is to up the grip factor to get a clearer picture of where we are. Just remember, the thing about transient simulation, yes, it opens up a much broader range of variables for you to look at. However, what it also means is that if there's an error in the model, it's going to show up a little bit more. So sometimes what we need to do when we're initially modeling is we just need to up that grip factor just to get a bit of a clearer read about where our model's at. So we go back here, and what we'll do is we'll let this do its thing, and we'll come back when we come back, we'll show you what the results look like. Okay, so we're just about the end. Now, what we've done now, we've upping that grip factor by 10%. We're now down to about a 92.5 second lap. Now, the original baseline, as we saw, was about a 90.1 second lap. Let's see what that did. So what we're going to do is we'll load that data up. And what we're now going to do is compare it against the actual data. And as we can see right now, things are a lot better. Obviously, there's still quite a bit of tidying up there's still a lot of there's a lot of tidying up we still need to do. But what that has done, I should say, actual is colored, simulated as black. So that's gotten us quite a bit. That's gotten us quite a bit closer. Now, at this point in the game, I would probably start to think about things such as thinking about tire modeling, etc., etc. Now, while I appreciate everything that we've discussed, and just to show you what that overall view looks like. Okay, just taking a look at that overall view of dampers, etc., etc., I would look at something like this and go, you know what? We're at a point where I can now start playing around with the tire force modeling quick start to go in and tidy that up. And really where I would probably look at areas like that would be what mean the tire force model quick start, basically this dialog here in tire properties. But really, ladies and gentlemen, the point that I really want to ram home today is really the key to simulation is just start. Get going. And the great thing is, particularly for those of you who are newer to ChassisSim, with what we've done with throwing in the ChassisSim tutorial, that's really greatly aided that process. For those of you who are not yet ChassisSim users and you're sort of sitting on the fence, one thing I'd encourage you to do is sign up to our online simulation. If you decide it's your cup of tea and you buy a purchase, we're actually going to throw you in 50 free credits so you can play with the ChassisSim tutorial and get up to speed. But honestly, though, even if you're not using ChassisSim, if you are using other simulation packages, again, the key to, I really cannot ram home this point enough. The key is to get started. And once you get started, things become so much clearer about what you need to do. And then you can get cute later. Remember, the key is you start from a template, modify it to your needs, run your initial simulations, do a sanity check, and then you refine from there. If you do that, you'll be surprised how quickly you can get up and running with a simulation model. We'll leave it at that. For those of you who are existing ChassisSim users, I hope this has helped. For those of you who are new ChassisSim users, check out the blog, check out the YouTube channel, get going with the online simulation, and see for yourself just what a powerful tool race car simulation is.